Today we're going to cover Assassin's Creed Bloodstone Part 2. This continues the story of our Vietnam Assassin Brotherhood era. The story as we know it up to this point is our assassin, Tomo's parents, were murdered by Maxime Gorm. But Maxime Gorm has lost his memories and doesn't remember any of this. Natalie Chapman is trying to track down an apple of Eden to use in her experiments. Her experiment is an attempt to basically implant the memories of an ancestor into the mind of a modern-day individual. A more permanent bleeding effect, basically. Tomo's with an assassin cell run by Hajime, an old friend, and the assassins are sending Tomo into the past of Alexei. The past storyline, which is where our Vietnam assassins are currently located, has Alexei tracking down Pash. Pash is a former assassin who betrayed the Order. Pash is a former assassin who betrayed the Brotherhood to steal an apple of Eden for his own experiments. But his experiments went wrong and he overwrote the mind of Julia Gorm, who is the mother of Maxime Gorm, and Julia is now just a mindless killer chasing Pash. While this is all kind of confusing, the bare bones version is that Tomo and Chapman are each in the past through an animus to try and find where the apple of Eden is. Now let's get into the story of Bloodstone 2. Having barely avoided being killed by an assassin from the Brotherhood in her own home, Natalie Chapman decides that it's time to finally complete her memory resurrection project. But in order for her to do that, she's going to need Elisa Adler and Maxime Gorm, both of whom fled after Tomo Sakagawa's failed ambush. At this moment, she is now visiting a gravestone in Lake Genevieve. Chapman vows to get back the piece of Eden that she needs over the grave of her father, Boris Pash. But first, she has to make a call. Moments after the ambush, which seemingly killed Tomo, Maxime and Elisa fled by taking Tomo's car, but not before getting attacked by one of Hajime's assassins. Maxime notices the presence before they could land their strike, flipping them onto the hood of the car, stabbing them first. The two get back in the car, and Maxime tells Elisa that her little friends and her hooded psychos want him dead, and if she doesn't want to be thrown from his car, she needs to start talking now. She begins to shout, asking how is she supposed to know? That man was her doctor. He convinced her to take him to her parents, and now they're dead. But Elisa's phone begins to ring, and she looks at it, stating that it's Natalie Chapman. Florent, the code name that Tomo was going by, said that Natalie was an enemy. Maxime asks, an enemy of the other wacko? Perfect. Answer it and tell her that I've got the hard drive for trade. Elisa picks up the phone, but before she could even say hello, Chapman says something in Russian, and Elisa freezes. Maxime asks what did she want, but Elisa grabs the gun, turning it on Maxime, telling him to take the road toward the Swiss Alps. It's time to go home. Meanwhile, still recovering from his near-fatal injury from the Adler's home, Tomo is hooked back into the Animus Omega, despite his pleas to not put him back in. Hajime tells him that they tried other assassins, but his synchronization with Alexei is unmatched. If Chapman succeeds, she'll be in a position to bring back any assassin from the past life. This is their only chance. With no choice, Tomo is sent to the past, July 1964, where Alexei, now under the direct order of CIA Director Bill Harvey, was sent to put an end to Boris Pash's Project Bluebird. As Alexei is quietly sneaking through North Vietnam, he uses his assassin skills to take down soldiers without notice. He then uses his military training to gun the soldiers when he was outmatched. But after finally reaching his objective, Alexei is confronted by Dagora, a member of the Assassin Brotherhood. Dagora takes off his hidden blade, tossing it to the side, telling Alexei that they could fight like men rather than assassins. That he only stuck around to get revenge against Alexei for his buddy Greer. Alexei tells him that he didn't have a choice. Greer is the one who took out President Kennedy at the JFK assassination. Alexei demands to know the destination of where everyone is, and maybe he'll let Dagora live. Without warning, Dagora punches, kicking Alexei down, asking, "It wasn't enough for you to abandon the assassins, huh? You had to track us down like dogs." Alexei tries to reason with him once more, but Dagora tells him that the world is going to be lost without Pasha's work. But Alexei never took off his hidden blade. He unlocks it, slashing at Dagora's throat, followed up by a jab to the stomach. Dagora begins to cough up blood and he staggers. And right before he falls, Alexei catches him and Dagora tells him to take care of Xenia. Alexei continues his hunt, tracking Pash down to the new region, while he avoids conflicts by keeping to the rivers while using the Vietnamese People's Army as cover. The soldiers lead Pash into a small clearing to help avoid them being ambushed, but suddenly the boat carrying most of the soldiers explodes. The soldier steering Pash's boat jumps out, pushing him to the ledge, calling out to be attacked. But as Pash helps Xenia out of the water, Alexei makes his move, pointing a gun, asking, "Are you pleased to see me, Pash? The apple of Eden, if you don't mind." Pash begins to explain that he doesn't have it. Then Alexei smacks the butt of the gun against Pash's head, and Xenia steps up. "No, it's true! We left the apple behind on the island of Han Mi. We made sure to hide it well. And if the Brotherhood wants to get their hands on it, then you need to take me somewhere safe." She lifts her shirt, revealing that she is ready to give birth. And that is the reason why Pash is giving up the Apple of Eden, to save his unborn child. Alexei stands bewildered, and Xenia says that they're going to talk about it later. But she should have given birth back on Han Mi, but that little surprise invasion of his forced them to change their plans. Alexei begins to put everything together, telling them that the USS Maddox is close. They have a sick bay, and if they can get Xenia to there, she'll be safe. A soldier steps out at that moment, yelling that Alexei is just going to give them up. But Xenia grabs the man's gun, telling him to stop. There's already been enough killing. They have Julia Gorm on their trail. So Alexei asks, what is Julia Gorm's story? Pash explains that she is a victim of dissociative identity disorder. She actually thinks that she is her father, Eddie Gorm, who has sworn to kill Pash. They locked her up for a time until they could get her some treatment, but she escaped during the attack. Since then, Julia has been relentlessly hunting them down, and if she catches up, well, Alexei can say goodbye to the Apple of Eden. Later, walking through the river, Pash says that they should have brought a boat. Xenia is exhausted, and Alexei tells them that they'd be defenseless on the water on a boat. Should have thought of that before turning Julia into a war machine. Pash says that Julia actually volunteered because she believed in the mission to restore the freedom that was stolen from humanity by the precursors. The precursors were here well before the human species, and they controlled the humans with the fragments of Eden, depriving them of their free will. To be truly free, man must free itself from this shackle and have access to the memories of its ancestors. Those who came before made sure that this might never happen again, like Project Bluebird. Alexei tells him to stop. He knows the spiel, but now he doesn't buy it. Soon, night begins to fall, and the four of them hide in an abandoned shack to try and get some rest. When Xenia sits to watch, Alexei joins her, stating that Harvey is only interested in Pash. He can convince him to take her and the baby if Xenia tells him that the baby needs Pash. Alexei asks why him. She explains that Pash was down about his repeated failures to try and reform Julia Gorm. He always thought of Julia as his own daughter. The goal of Project Bluebird was to allow the present mind to cohabitate with their ancestors, but it drove Julia insane. What Julia really inherited in the end was her father's psychosis by way of bleeding effect transfer. So Boris Pash told himself that he'd discover how to extend their existence beyond death. She asks if Alexei understands the potential of that work, the possibility of being reborn into a younger organism. For her, the possibility of starting over from scratch to fix all of the bad that she has done in her life. Alexei asks if he's hearing her right. She wants to reincarnate her mind into the future kid. Have you lost your mind, Xenia? But just then, Alexei is struck in the head from behind. Before blacking out, he hears Xenia shouting to Pash that he didn't need to do that. Who's gonna protect them from Julia Gorm? Pash tells her that they can't trust Alexei. He sold his soul to Harvey. However, Alexei sees something else on the horizon, moving towards them quickly. And it's conveniently Julia. Meanwhile, back in the modern day, the bleeding effect is beginning to take over Tomo's mind as he screams that Julia is here. Hajime tells him to calm down and listen. You're not Alexei Gavrani. You're not in Vietnam. You are Tomo. But as the Brotherhood tries to restrain Tomo, and then he begins to attack Hajime's men and blows up the Brotherhood's computers. Now, with all of their work destroyed, Hajime extends his hidden blade, telling him that he's sorry about this, but the Brotherhood comes before all else. By the time Tomo regains his senses, he's already destroyed everything, and Hajime is dying in his arms as he asks, what did he do? Jime tells him that it's the fault of the bleeding effect. He didn't know what he was doing. Contact Seiko from the Osaka cell. They tracked his car. Tell him that Chapman, Gorm, and Adler are hiding near Gimmelwald in Switzerland, and don't go alone. Tomo takes Hajime's hidden blade, telling him that he doesn't plan to. He's taking Alexei with him. Meanwhile, over by the Swiss Alps, Maxime says that he thought that they were heading to Grimmelwald. Where are they going? And just so she knows, he could have her neutralized right now if he wanted to. He went along with this game because it was the quickest way to understand what was going on. But she is going to have to explain herself before they reach their destination. Elisa tells him to pull over to where that man is standing by a helicopter. As the two of them get out, Stanislas greets them, telling them to hurry out of the cold. Natalie is rather impatient to see them. Later, as they're in the air, Maxime says to summarize, Natalie hypnotized Elisa, then waited for the right moment to have her drive him over to her. Sorry, he may be an amnesiac, but he's not a moron. Chapman interrupts him though. Yet you underwent the same treatment 17 years ago. The Adlers worked in Madrid for a company known as Abstergo, the public face of the Order of the Templars. The hard drive that you stole contained all of their experiments with the Animus, and their goal was simple: to manipulate the human brain. Then the Templars launched their Great Purge in 2000 to wipe out the Brotherhood, and they used assassins like him against his will. The man who attacked them was Tomo Sakagawa, and Maxime, you're the one responsible for the death of Tomo's parents. Maxime says that it sounds like a wonderful story, but since he had his memory wiped, she might as well tell him about Santa Claus. Now where are they going anyway? Chapman says that they're going to her home. To appease his fears, it's best to let him discover for himself her project for the destiny of the human species, and why Maxime Gorm is the key. As they land by what looks to be a giant silo, Maxime asks what is she doing out here, testing nuclear bombs, chemical weapons? She says that she's sorry to disappoint, but this place houses radio transmitters to interact with the ionosphere. Contrary to popular belief, she does not want to rule the world. They're going to offer mankind the biggest advance in its history by unlocking the access to its genetic memory. The last stage of their project lies in optimizing the power of a very specific Apple of Eden. She inherited the fourth piece of Eden from her father, Boris Pash, but she was conceived 9 months before he went to Vietnam, which was a vital period in his experiment. As such, her genetic data bank doesn't have access to search that period in the Animus, which is why they need his mother's eyes, and in exchange for his cooperation, they will restore his memory and Elisa's as well. Before long, the image of that night in Vietnam began to replay through the eyes of Julia Gorm. While Pash and Xenia were arguing over Alexei's intentions, Julia slit the throat of the soldier who was watching over them and then threw a knife, finding its mark in Xenia's shoulder. As Xenia fell to the ground, Alexei told Pash to take her to cover. I'll take care of Julia. After grabbing his rifle, Alexei opens fire, hitting Julia in the stomach, slowing her down. As she lands, she then lunges forward to stab Alexei, resulting in the both of them bleeding out on the ground. Pash comes over and Julia begins to state that she is sorry about his failure with Kramer. Sorry for Julia Dusk. And with that, she collapses as Pash looks at Alexei, asking if he's happy with himself. Does he realize what Julia meant to the next evolution of the human race? She better not die. Xenia coughs, stating that she can still feel the baby, but she is losing too much blood from the wound in her shoulder. They need to use Alexei's radio. All of them might be able to survive if they can contact Harvey and offer to reveal where the Apple of Eden is once they're safe. Pash will have to decide the Apple of Eden or his child. So, a few days later, aboard the USS Maddox, Pash sits beside Julia as Harvey walks in, stating that Julia Gorm killed his men and wounded Xenia, and yet he is sacrificing everything to protect her. Pash asks if they found the apple. Harvey takes it out, stating that the instructions were very clear. Thank you for that gift. Pash then says that he is the director of the CIA. He is the Bloodstone founder, his mentor within the Brotherhood. If you wanted the apple, you could have just asked instead of sending Alexei. We did everything you ordered us to do for Project Bluebird. The coup against the Diem, the Kennedy assassination. So why did you turn on us, Harvey? Harvey asks, really? Do you not understand? And Pash stops. I don't want to believe it, but since when are you a double agent for the Templar Order? It doesn't matter. What's important is that the US is getting involved in the Vietnamese conflict, a necessary intervention for reinforcing their influence in this region. Pash grabs Harvey, slamming him into the wall. Wasn't the Second World War enough? Harvey tells him, it's already too late. I told President Johnson that one of our most illustrious colonels was captured. There will be a rescue operation and it will be crowned a success, but not without sustaining enemy fire, a heinous aggression against our nation. Pash falls to his knees, stating that they made him a traitor against the Brotherhood and their country. What do they expect from him now? Silence? Suicide? Harvey fixes his jacket. Of course not. Your knowledge is crucial to the Order. I've been rather impatient to learn more about how the fourth apple of Eden works. Pash tells him it's a deadlock. It always has been. Kramer tried to use the fourth apple of Eden to make super soldiers and it blew up his base. Von Neumann tried to use it to travel in time, causing the deaths of hundreds of Marines in Philadelphia. All Pash wanted to do was buy his conscience back by raising Eddie Gorm's daughter, and he turned her into a monster. No, you managed to transfer her father's strength to her. She is living proof that our brains can draw and make use of our ancestors' memories. Pash tells him that Project Bluebird did allow him to awake something buried in Julia, but her human mind was not ready to welcome multiple independent consciousnesses. No one could have withstood it. Precursor technology is a danger for mankind, and our duty is to destroy it. Just then there's a knock at the door, and Harvey says that no one ever said that it would be easy. There's no progress without sacrifice. Allow me to introduce a Templar friend, Warren Vidic. He is still very young, but he's a prodigy, and he took care of Xenia's delivery. A young, smiling Warren Vidic walks in holding a baby, telling Pash that he has a wonderful daughter. You wish to name her Natalia, right? Pash asks, what about Xenia? And Warren tells him that he's sorry, he did everything that he could, but Xenia asked him to save the baby as a priority. Pash goes over to hold Natalie. Harvey blocks him, telling him that he needs his loyalty, and Pash slams him into the wall, shouting, You want to bargain with my daughter? Harvey says that Natalie will stay with them. If he cares for her, he will consider himself in the service of the Templars. He will quit the CIA and hand over his research to Warren. Warren Vidic wants to relaunch Project Bluebird and study genetic memories. Warren also has no children, so he'll be very happy to watch over Natalie. Oh, and don't worry about Julia Gorm. We need a new agent. Back in the modern day, Maxime yells to take this thing off. Now that he has showed them Julia's side of the conflict, he wants out. The operator states that maybe they missed something, but Chapman says no, it's finished. They saw the state that Julia was in, total madness. Maxime tells her that he did his part, and Chapman tells him that he did. It was the rest of the glorious Gorm story. Thanks to him, now they know her identity. You had one hell of a family, Maxime. But now we can activate all of our phased antennas. We are starting soon. Stanislas asks if she's sure. They still haven't learned how to control the Apple of Eden. They need to cancel, but Chapman tells him that they will not make the same mistakes of her father. There is no question of attempting a complete memory resurrection like they did in Julia, but perhaps they could at least awaken a conscious to genetic memory, a more evolved human that would mean the end of the war between the Assassins and the Templars. However, as Chapman's machine begins to power up, outside, Tomo is climbing his way up, still having the memories and abilities of Alexei. As Elisa sees a shadow in her window, he smashes it, jumping in. She charges at him, but Tomo disarms her, slamming her down, telling her to stop it. He came to help. She asks like he did in Madrid, but he says that he wasn't himself, and she knows it. Chapman used both of them to get her hands on Elisa's parents' work. His real name is Tomo. Maxime Gorm assassinated his mother when he was a little boy. More people will die if they let them go ahead, and it will be their fault. Tomo and Elisa make their way through, Tomo showing himself to practically be a master assassin. Until finally, after killing multiple guards, Tomo finds Maxime and kills him while he's still cuffed. Elisa asks what is he doing. Gorm was supposed to be their hostage, but Tomo pulls out his knife. There's been a change in plans. In the control room, the operators are looking through the terminal, stating that there is a virus blocking the entire system. Bluebird is locked down, and Chapman scoffs. Tomo. Just then, hearing his name, Tomo holds up a phone. Don't panic. I want to negotiate and not get butchered. This smartphone is your only chance to unlock your thing, and I've encrypted all of it, obviously. Chapman asks what he wants, and Tomo says the keys to their chopper and a guarantee that he won't get shot out of the sky when he leaves with Elisa. All they need to do is give him any old phone in exchange for this one. Once they're safe, he'll unlock it. Chapman motions to one of the guards to give him the helicopter keys, but tells Tomo that he needs to think about it. By offering genetic memory to the entire population, Bluebird will bring universal wisdom and guide them to true freedom. Tomo tells her that being saddled with the memories of their ancestors isn't freedom. Quite the opposite. It's having the choice to make decisions free of influence that matter. Chapman says that in that case, she'll see him in the new world, and Tomo follows the guard out. One of the other guards asks if she's letting him go. She tells him of course not. Elisa is still under her hypnotic influence. Once Bluebird relaunches, she'll just have Elisa take them back. But a few moments in the air, Elisa asks Tomo if he was really going to let them activate that machine. They can't restart Project Bluebird. It created monsters like Julia Gorm and Maxime Gorm. Tomo tells her that that wasn't his intention at all. It occurred to him that there is no coincidence that Chapman built her antenna field in the middle of the mountains. She's requiring a large quantity of ice to cool down such an installation. In short, he didn't send her the unlocking code, but a Trojan horse designed to mess with her cooling systems, and Chapman just punched it herself into the central computer. Within seconds, Chapman's entire compound explodes. And that brings us to the conclusion of Assassin's Creed Bloodstone. Now, what happened in here was kind of confusing when you try to lay it out in a straightforward story. I mean, overall, Assassin's Creed can get kind of confusing. But basically, following up from Bloodstone 1, we discovered that Chapman was trying to reach into Project Bluebird, which was a technology similar to the Animus, which would force the bleeding effect and put somebody else's consciousness into your mind. Julia Gorm thought that she was her father. Maxime was kind of in a similar situation. Tomo was feeling these similar effects with Alexei, but the Animus Omega, I guess, just was aggressively putting the memories into him, but at the same time, he was able to deal with the two personalities. All of this was tied to the fourth Apple of Eden, which went missing around the JFK assassination and the Vietnam War, which is why they were trying to track down the location of the fourth Apple of Eden piece. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoyed this comic book kind of a recap of the storyline. We're going to be doing a lot more Assassin's Creed coverage over here, and if these do well, I'm debating other comic book themed books, such as the Sonic series. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your continued support, and I hope you like and subscribe to this channel, and just hang around at the Eligible Monster Gaming Lore channel.